There we are. That's what's going on. Sorry about that. I thought I was already live. I had started the stream, but I wasn't live, I guess. Still getting used to a little bit how YouTube does it. Bear with me here just a moment. I'm trying to, yep, there we go. Making sure I get my YouTube chat also up on my phone so I get a good view count every once in a while. And with that, we are live. Welcome back to Darwin's Ravens channel, or D-rave for short. Not that I have any viewers here currently, but we're going to give a good old cheers. I've got my Ravens coaster. Now, before we get started today, I might actually give the channel or the stream about 10 minutes or so. Just hoping to get a few viewers in before we start our actual coverage for the day. Shout out just at the start of the stream to Tom Grassi again for giving me that raid the other day. I think we tagged him in our description. Tom, love to do a video with you. Shout out, I was watching your coverage earlier today. I literally came in right as your stream ended. But I watched your NFC South reaction videos earlier today. I would like to do my own version, not quite the same, but a little bit different of the AFC North, specifically just AFC North. With that being said, today too, we're going to be doing a little bit of work more again on the PC today. Roquan Smith got his press media conference started today, so he was introduced to the Baltimore Ravens media. You can go check that out on the Baltimore Ravens YouTube page as well. So, of course, today we're going to be covering the NFL trade deadline, which passed yesterday at 4 p.m. We had a decent amount of trades going down. As we've seen in the current NFL landscape, there are a lot of teams that are willing to make these trades for players with serious Super Bowl aspirations. With that being said, the Niners making an aggressive move for Christian McCaffrey. We're going to talk later here at the end of the stream about an odd playoff scenario or Super Bowl run scenario for the, excuse me, I'm burping from the soda, San Francisco 49ers. Of course, my Ravens landing Roquan Smith was a huge, huge move by the Baltimore Ravens. The Dolphins, of course, are really buying in and making their Super Bowl run. The Bears made a flurry of moves. Vikings making big moves. Eagles making big moves. You're going to see me periodically flipping through a little bit here. I've got about 6 pages of notes when I was doing my research earlier today, prepping for this video. So again, we're trying to give it just a little bit of time here. I'm looking at 5 minutes on the clock on the current stream OBS. So hopefully give it about 5 more minutes, and then I'm just going to start burning through this, whether we have viewers or not. If anyone does drop in, please drop me comments after the video. I would love just to talk and, I love gauging other fans. Gotta feel like I gotta sneeze. It's true. Oh, pardon me. But I love to talk and gauge other fans' ideas and viewpoints on their own teams. I'm a big guy in seeing, if they're more of a football guy and analyze their team without bias, or, usually you get one side of the spectrum. You either have the fan who's so biased towards his own team that he, is just nonsense. Or you have the guy who's so pessimistic about his own team. They're all incompetent. Oh, they all suck. That, again, not really going to get a good analysis from them. So I like to consider myself kind of in the middle. I like to consider myself a realist and try to eliminate as much bias as I can, but it's a rough one. Doubt destroying's ever going to come in, but I would love destroying. I'm down here in Florida myself. Destroying. 7:30 on the clock. We're almost about ready to start here, ladies and gentlemen. Not that anyone's watching. If you drop in later, just fast forward through all this, honestly, if you're still here at this point. 10 minutes on the video. That should be the approximate starting position. I don't know if yeah, it says live 7:47. We got quite a lot of stuff to talk about. We have several teams that are really making their playoff run at this point. You know, they think they're one piece away. We've got a few teams that are in rebuild mode. We've got a few teams that are already aiming for salary caps. I've got a few sleeper picks here. We had quite a few interesting trades looking at the full dynamics of everything. A lot of conditional picks are involved this year. I believe only one compensatory pick. I've got my sleeper pick. Cowboys fans, stick ahead. I believe you are honestly the sleeper trade. And it really was under the radar. And I feel like it happened a while ago. But yeah, we're going to talk about that here just shortly. Counting it down basically from 1 minute out. No viewers at the time, I don't believe. If you're there, please say something. But I believe my one viewer is basically my phone. Cheers. Oh. Are we going to rock the Raven hat today? Maybe. Let's see. Oh, yeah, we're rocking the hat today. I feel like a play caller. I feel like I'm going to be rocking the hat a lot because your boy's hair's falling out. So it be like that sometimes. Counting it down, though, 15 seconds, and we're going to get started here. We're going to get some Poe dancing action. All right, guys. And with that being said, we're 10 minutes in. We're going to start the official stream and broadcast here. For anyone that does come in afterwards, again, leave us some likes, comments. I'd love to talk more. Again, shout out to Grassi. And we got Poe pumping us up, trying to get us ready for this stream with no viewers. So with that, let's get it started. So let's get Poe off the screen. So I'm going to real quick run through this real quick. If you didn't see last night, we did an extensive coverage with Roquan Smith being traded to the Baltimore Ravens. We're going to cover it very lightly today, focusing more on the other things. But our presentation, just, running through it. Again, his stats, this is all part of last night. So we made a comparison to Hall of Famer Ray Lewis, talking about salary cap complications and the compensation involved in the deal, grades for that trade, and the ups and downs of Roquan Smith, where we eventually went into a little bit of film review. Again, we did that video last night. If you haven't seen it, please go check it out. We had a viewer drop in, and he stayed in. Oh my God, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. I got it. Actually, I believe it was Mike. So I got it in one of my... Yeah, Mike. Anyway, so Mike stayed with us for a long time last night. We chatted a lot about the Chicago Bears. Mark dropped in for a while. So with that being said, we're going to start with the first one going down the list. Of course, the 49 and Panthers trading the 49ers, acquiring Christian McCaffrey from the Carolina Panthers. The compensation involved in this deal, we're looking at a 2023 second round, third round, and fourth round, with a fifth round as well. Going across NFL, basically the cross-board draft I'm sorry, trade grades rating at B for both teams and a B minus for the Panthers, essentially. So, was this a good deal? Is the real question. As we saw, let me go here to the notes. We saw 23 snaps in Christian McCaffrey's first start for the 49ers. I believe he became one of the first halfbacks to ever rush, pass, and receive a touchdown, if I'm not mistaken. The salary is going to be a little bit of an interesting issue here for the 49ers in the future. But Christian McCaffrey looking like he really is that piece that the 49ers were looking for to make this Super Bowl run. We're going to talk a little bit here later about a playoff opportunity for the 49ers and a unique situation that compares historically to another team that's actually doing really well in the NFL right now. The Panthers, of course, in full reload at this point. I've again talked about I want to start a project called PRP, Project Rebuild the Panthers, where we talk about specifically about building a team where I grew up, in the area. Diehard Baltimore Raven fan, born in Maryland, but I grew up in South Carolina, and it pains my heart to see my Carolina Panthers, my second team. Shit. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, B's across the board. I'm going to rate this, in my opinion, actually B 49ers, A to the Panthers. Um, I would not have moved Artie Burns looking at the free agency market ahead. And, edge is a very hard position to evaluate in draft, as we've seen in the NFL. So I like the move. I love Christian McCaffrey. He has a huge injury history, which is always, as we talked about in my last stream, if you're not available, I'm going to have issues with you. Fun fact, though, if you go and check the stats, Christian McCaffrey's steps per second is going to be a very interesting stat. It's one of the things that allows him to change direction, and it's actually an important stat when you're scouting halfbacks in the future, especially depending on the system you use. So again, B for the 49ers, A for the Panthers. Yolks on my face if the 49ers end up in the Super Bowl. Like I said, we'll talk about that here shortly. Again, we talked about this just a little bit ago. Ravens acquiring Roquan Smith, middle linebacker from the Bears, or I should say linebacker. Bears taking the Ravens 2023 second and fifth round pick, as well as A.J. Klein. A.J. Klein's just going to be a roster fill spot for the Bears this season. This was graded as a B minus for the Ravens, B plus for the Bears. Originally last night, I was a little more skeptical about the compensation on this. However, after doing a little more analysis and looking at it and thinking about it overnight, even if Roquan Smith walks from the Ravens at the end of this offseason, he's looking for top money. He's looking for Shaq Leonard and Fred Warner money, which is, I think, about $19 million a year. So if he gets anywhere close to that level of a deal, then of course the Ravens going to be awarded a compensatory pick for their loss on him at that point. With that being said, the Ravens of course would get the highest amount, which is a third round pick. So basically they're trading a end of the round hopeful second pick for an end of the round third pick and a fifth, is basically what that trade was. And when you look at it more like that, I actually lean as this a potential A plus, or not A plus, I'm sorry, A minus for the Ravens. Again, if Roquan Smith doesn't play up and we see deficiencies in his run game, as we saw in the film analysis last night, maybe it was just the circumstances of the game, but Roquan Smith might struggle with getting off some linemen at the second level. So moving on, we're going to go to the Dolphins-Broncos trade of edge rusher Bradley Chubb. So the Dolphins really in a full playoff push at this point. They are all in, and what's his name? Ross, the owner of the Miami Dolphins, is trying to get this Super Bowl win. He was really jealous about Tom Brady last year. As of course, we know there was meddling and all kinds of other things where they were trying to bring Tom Brady and Sean Payton out of retirement to play in Miami. Bradley Chubb, of course, we're looking at 5.5 sacks on the season. Contract year, he's looking for about $20 million a year. So, with that in mind, just as we just talked about in the Baltimore Ravens trade, if the Dolphins let Bradley Chubb go at the end of the season, they're of course going to get at least a third round pick here. So the Broncos receiving 2023 first round pick. It's actually the 49ers original pick, so that's something to keep in mind. Bronco fans, let me address this right now. I'm a little worried about your Broncos. I kind of feel like, I mean, I should literally like take a bet right now on it, put $1 on it. I feel that the Broncos are about to give up on this season, and I think they're going to shut Russell Wilson down here soon. I think we're going to see Russell Wilson, like an injury, more like in practice. Like, oh, you know what? We did MRI, and his shoulder's just not looking good, and we're just, safe than sorry. I feel like the Broncos are going to take a safe and slow approach. They can't give up on Russell Wilson, in my opinion, yet, especially with the contract. So I feel as if they're going to give him more time to learn the offense and tailor this offense. And they're going to try to use some of these picks. Basically, they needed to recoup some of their losses for the Russell Wilson trade. The biggest knock on the Broncos was on this trade. How are you going to put weapons around Russell Wilson at this point, especially when you give him that deal? Getting a first, fourth, and Chase Edmonds, not a bad player here. See if I was trying to have my stats on him. I have his replacement stats for the Dolphins. My apologies. Don't have his stats. But the Dolphins were very comfortable sending Chase Edmonds to the Broncos because, as we're going to go over here shortly, the Dolphins, of course, made 2 moves at halfback before the trade deadline, and I think they're great moves. So NFL ranks this Dolphins B, Broncos A minus. Honestly, I feel like that's fair. I feel like that's fair. I'm going to leave that as is. Broncos getting the good amount of picks out of it. Even if Chase Edmonds is in a contract year potentially, if he walks at the end of the year, potential 4th and 5th or 5th round pick more than likely. The running back market and free agency is going to be really interesting this year, I believe. So with that being said, look at this as essentially a 1st, 4th, and 5th round pick. Of course, the 4th coming in 2024, but of course that could be you. I can tell you right now, I could see the Broncos pairing that 4th round pick, and even maybe the 5th, but keeping the 5th probably or 4th, whatever their compensatory pick is for Chase Edmonds. But taking that 4th round pick in 2024, that's already and pairing it together with that 49ers original pick to move a little up in the draft, because if the 49ers make a playoff run, of course that pick's going to be low, and that sweet spot like for really good players like 12 to 18 in the draft is going to be an opportune spot for the Broncos to use that pick to trade up. Of course, Miami getting a great edge rusher in Bradley Chubb. I believe he had what? 8? No, that's Robert Quinn stats, 18.5 sacks. But yeah, I'll keep that as a B for the Dolphins, A minus for the Broncos. Moving on to the Bears Steelers. So this is a really interesting trade. So as I talked last night with Mike about the Chicago Bears, because he's a Bears fan, the Bears are pretty confident in their young players. They know they're not really going anywhere right now in the season. However, I believe we're seeing from the GM and owner of the Bears, basically they're saying, hey, Justin, you've kind of been really good. We really think you might be the guy, but we want to see a little more. So they traded away a lot of their defensive talent because they do have good young guys that they think will eventually step up, and they want to see them grow. They want to see either Justin Fields take the next step or at least take a step, I should say. Chase Claypool coming in 6'4", 238 when he came out in the NFL draft running a 4'4", 240. Funny fact, I'm sorry, Grossi, but I don't know if you saw this. The Packers were apparently calling about Chase Claypool and were really interested in Chase Claypool. And man, that would have been a huge weapon for Aaron Rodgers. I think, of course, Chase not having a good as year this year as he had. I mean, he hasn't had as good a year since his rookie season, but his stats are still pretty good for what the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback play has been. So with that being said, like I said, the Bears are, I think, looking really hard at next season. We covered it last stream. The Bears are going to lead the NFL in cap space, if I'm not mistaken, at over 120 million at this point. Which, unless other teams make some more moves, they're going to have way more money than anybody else. So it's going to be a heavy hand market for the Chicago Bears with a pretty good amount of picks. So this was rated a C plus. But and let me address this too again. Chase Claypool. Oh no, he signed an extension. Never mind. The only downside of this is that second round pick they gave up was the Bears. So that's a potential pick in the 30s. So of course 33 to 39, which is a very, very valuable pick. Almost could argue it's basically a first round pick at that point still, depending. Hey, whoever's dropping in, thanks for dropping in. We're covering, of course, the NFL trade deadline yesterday and the moves that went down. Whoever's dropping in, do you have a favorite team? If you see me looking down, I'm reading all the notes. I've got 6 pages of notes that I wrote for today's show. I think one of the most funniest parts about this trade, though, and you might have seen some memes about it, is that Chase Claypool in this year's draft announced the second round pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And who did they pick? George Pickens, the wide receiver out of Georgia, who basically is a clone, shape, size, speed, everything of Chase Claypool, and of course is kind of replacing him for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they basically had him announce his replacement, which is dirty. Yeah, I'm sorry, Grossi. The Packers really could have used Chase Claypool. That would have been a great pickup for them. This is rated by NFL at a C plus for the Bears, a B for the Steelers. I don't know. I would actually rate this B plus for the Steelers and a B minus actually for the Bears, a little higher for the Bears. I think Chase Claypool and Justin Fields might have that connection. Lamar could even have used a guy like that, but of course we would never have seen an inside division trade like that. All right, so we're going to be moving on. This was one actually mentioned last night by Mike in the stream. So Vikings acquiring and Lions. Vikings acquiring tight end TJ Hawkinson from the Lions, as well as the 2023 fourth round pick and a conditional 2024 fourth round pick. The Lions, of course, receiving a 2023 second round pick and 2024 third round pick. With the Vikings, of course, being 6-1, that second round pick is going to be later in the draft. Let me go ahead and talk, though. They address these both as C plus trades. I definitely am going to rate this way different. The Vikings, I'm going to rate this as, I'm going to leave that as a C plus. I think we're going to address this here in a moment. But the Lions as a C plus, no. I'm going to go at least B plus, borderline A. For a few reasons here. So, of course, a third round pick this year and a fourth round pick in the third round, as we just talked about in one of the previous trades, that pick can be really used as a package deal, essentially, because it's extra picks you already received. At that point, you might be able to sneak into the bottom of the first round, and it gives you a lot of extra ammo. As well as doing this, this freed up $13 million in cap space for the Detroit Lions, who, of course, kind of are done for the year. But not only does it free up $13 million this year on the cap, but it frees up $13 million next year, which is a pretty big number, especially when your rival, the Chicago Bears, are going to lead the NFL in free agency cap. So with that being said, the reason it's important for this year is there's a cap carryover in the NFL. So if they save extra money this year, they're allowed to carry over some of that money. It all depends on player contracts and a lot of different financial factors. So this is going to give them a big chunk last year. Of course, the Vikings were in need after Irv Smith went to IR with, I believe, an ankle injury, a high ankle sprain, something of the such. Maybe he can come back for playoff time. The reason, though, I'm leaving this as a C plus for the Vikings. I'm sorry my lighting's going weird. I got, weird lighting in this room. Um, so, of course, the conditional pick is going to be based on sorry, I'm trying to find it again. Actually, I don't think they listed what the condition was because it's a 4th round conditional for, I'm guessing based on playing time or our contract, as I have the contract details for a lot of these after. Whoever's coming in, thank you for reviewing, by the way. So the Vikings, of course, with Thielen and Jefferson, have a dynamic 1-2 punch at wide receiver, which is really needed in the high-scoring NFL offenses. Of course, the 3 is really important. The 3 usually being tight ends for a lot of teams. Irv Smith was playing pretty good. TJ Hawkinson, of course, shows the potential to take over games. He's had like back-to-back 100-yard games, I think, at one point. So he's got that potential to be that guy. However, and this is why I'm rating the Vikings low on this trade. Even in the current offense, and you may argue that was limited by Irv Smith, but in their current offensive setup, Kirk Cousins doesn't really use the tight end, or the tight end isn't accentuated. Of course, we may see a revamp of the Minnesota Vikings offense. However, you don't really want to, break something that ain't broke. You know what I'm saying? They're 6-1, and we're gonna address actually the Vikings. If you're a Vikings fan, stick around. Whoever, I lost my viewer, bye viewer. If you're a Vikings fan, stick around for the end of the stream here because again, we're covering 49ers and Vikings potential playoff or potential Super Bowl run. So again, rating this B plus to an A minus for the Lions, while giving this a C plus for the Vikings. So moving on, we're going to move on to the Eagles and Bears trade. Of course, the Eagles still undefeated. I mean, they're the Super Bowl favorite matchup currently on odds is Super Bowl Bills Eagles. I mean, it's hard to argue with the Eagles, but God forbid anything happens to Jalen Hurts. I don't know if the Eagles get there. But so the Eagles acquire Robert Quinn from the Bears. Bears, again, kind of, like I said, they're comfortable with the young defensive players. They're looking to build picks up and use those picks plus a lot of their cap space in this next year to really tool up around Justin Fields. Or if Fields doesn't take that step, we could see Fields moved potentially for that 2nd-round pick that they used for Chase Claypool and use one of those 1st-round picks to get. Or I'm sorry, they have 2 1st-round picks to get a quarterback. And again, they could package a deal together really easily. So this one was a little bit of a weird one for the Bears. Of course, Robert Quinn wanted out from the get-go. A 4th-round pick, though. Robert Quinn is a 6'4", 245-pound edge rusher. Beautiful. That's in my opinion, a 3-4 to 4-3 dream, essentially. He had 18.5 sacks in 2021. And so here's the interesting fact about this trade and why it makes all the sense. And I'd even give the Eagles I'm going to give the Eagles a higher grade. I can't believe they only got a B for this. So there's a few things going into this. So based upon my reading, In the 18 and a half sack season in 2021, most of his sacks came from a 2-point stance, basically meaning he was standing up, more like a linebacker. He thrived in that. From my understanding, he wasn't really getting those opportunities in the new system. Um, when he's traded to the Eagles are 7-0. Again, don't break what ain't broke. He's not expected to play a lot of snaps. He's basically the fourth end in the rotation. He's in basketball, your sixth man, your man coming off your bench, you're that guy that you can throw in the clutch, kind of. In that first game, he played 20 snaps. So again, he's playing very limited snaps. He's getting to really just have fun rushing the passer if they get ahead. And you're going to see probably a little more than 20 snaps going forward, probably about 28 to 32. But for a fourth round pick, I mean, you can't beat that. Like, this was probably more about salary cap shedding and getting even more money for next season. But this was rated as a B for the Eagles and a C plus for the Bears. I'm going to hold this at a no, I got to drop this. This is a C minus for the Bears. I understand the cap thing, but for just a fourth round pick, I really feel like you could have got more from him. I think what scared a lot of teams away is I don't think a lot of teams want to really give him that long-term contract that he's looking for. I don't think the Eagles are going to give it to him either. However, if he does get it, like we talked about a few times on this stream, or I'm sorry, actually he's to a long-term deal, so I mean, maybe they'll eat the cap if they have to cut him, but Eagles are all in at this point. Because he signed a multi-year deal a while ago. Eagles might be in a cap position here in a while, but we forgot to talk about. I'm sorry, Vikings fans though, you're going to be in cap hell if you don't win this year. I'm sorry, but you're going to have some serious issues. So you're going to have a hard time in your division if you don't win this year. I feel like this is the year for you if you don't win it. But your cap picks your draft picks are pretty good. You're going to have to nail that draft if you want to be competitive next year. Eagles, though, I'm going to give a A for this. I think this is a great move. This is a Super Bowl type of move. Howie Roseman, I think, is the GM of the Eagles. Either way, the front office of the Eagles has been very aggressive in these trade moves and taking on certain contracts. And God, it's hard to not argue for the Eagles and for the NFC this year. Moving on to the Jaguars and Falcons. So this alert, this is by far the weirdest trade we saw. So, of course, the Jaguars are taking Calvin Ridley. They're giving up on the season. They're looking hard at next year, hoping that everything comes together. If I had been covering more, I think we talked about actually one of my very first streams. The Jaguars free agent signings were a big head scratcher for me. I think they definitely overspent in free agency. Of course, they had the ability to, and I think they kind of screwed it there. So the weird part of this is they're conditional picks. So the 5th round pick is tied to his playing time, while the 2024 conditional 2nd round pick is tied to a long-term contract extension. This is honestly a brilliant move by the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I'll explain this. So the Falcons, of course, were just internally done with Calvin Ridley after the whole betting thing and being basically suspended for the season. And, that's a whole other separate thing. They were done with him. They wanted to move on. So, and he's in a contract year, and he might walk away. So if he walks away in the current wide receiver market, he was expected to make money. He would have had a high price tag to keep, and of course he didn't want to stay. So maybe you get 3rd, 4th round, 5th, possibly 5th round compensatory pick for him. And as you can see, look at that, what we have in the trade. There's a small wide receiver market expected. So Sorry, just double checking my things here. All right. So, and with that being said, like I said, the first pick is conditionally tied to his playing time the next year. The second one is tied to if he like does a long-term deal, and this is where the Jacksonville Jaguars might really get them. So, if he signs somewhere else, basically, the picks are forfeited, if I'm not mistaken. So Jacksonville gets all their picks back, and of course, Jaguars don't get Calvin Ridley. However, Calvin Ridley at that point is ending his contract and is a comp pick formula for the Jaguars now. So if he walks in a big market, there's the potential for a third round pick. So if that happens, the Falcons get nothing and the Jaguars get a compensatory pick. Genius move. Or Calvin Ridley stays and the trade goes through as is. The third option where this might be tricky. So what happens if the Jaguars allow Ridley to go to free agency and just test it? They say, hey, here's the deal. We'd love to sign you to a 1 year or 2 year, whatever. I don't know the term, what, defines long term, but I'm guessing at least 3 years. We'll match any money you're given and do it on a 1 to 2 year deal and let you hit free agency again, which is a lot of times, if you're betting on yourself, that's what you want to do in the NFL contract wise, as we see with Lamar. So with that being said, what happens if he signs a 1 year deal for, $15 million? Yeah, he plays. They forfeit probably that 5th round pick, but he didn't sign a long-term deal. Therefore, they don't have to forfeit their 2024 second round pick. So Jacksonville might have really pulled one over here on the Falcons, but the Falcons were just ready to move on from Calvin Ridley. Next up, of course, make sure I got my Chiefs-Giants. Yep. So Chiefs acquiring wide receiver Kadarius Toney from the Giants. This is another one where the Giants were just ready to get rid of him. Giants receiving a 2023 round compensatory pick. So I guess they'd already had this awarded. I don't really understand, or they're predicting it. I'm not sure, but it was listed as a compensatory and a 2023 6th round pick. So of course, Toney is a 6'1" 193-pound wide receiver, only in his second year. The Giants supposedly said he had maturity issues and that he wasn't a good culture fit, which we've seen. I mean, let's be honest. We've seen a history of that in the New York Giants locker room. They are constantly saying, they have culture problems. Eli Apple, Kadarius Toney, OBJ supposedly. So there's a thing here, and then of course, Kadarius was having health issues, which again we've seen. I think Eli too. When they're not happy, a lot of times they just, I got an injury, coach, I can't play, which makes other players really mad. So when I was doing my reading, we also came across, just like the Green Bay rumors, there was rumors that in the 2021 NFL Draft, Kansas City really liked the Florida product Kadarius Toney. With that being said, the Chiefs sat at 32 that year, where Toney went a good bit higher. I believe we took Rashad Bateman not too long after, but Toney was being eyed by the Chiefs, and they really wanted him. So this is the Chiefs basically, instead of using a 1st round pick, coming back and get him for a 3rd and a 6th. This is rated as a B- to the Chiefs and a C+ to the Giants. I'm going to rate this as the Giants got to figure out what this culture problem is in their locker room, because it's costing them a lot of draft value. I'm going to rate this. I'm going to keep the B- to the Chiefs. If Toney gets healthy and really thrives in that Kansas City offense, which he has the chance, to be Tyreek Hill, essentially, is what they want him to be, kind of a slightly bigger Tyreek Hill. But C+ for the Giants. He wanted out. He wasn't going to be that guy for you. At that point, getting a 3rd and a 6th in the same year, I rate that as a B-. I'm going to raise that a little bit. Again, the Chiefs, this if Tony stays healthy, this adds a huge dynamic to the Chiefs' offense as well. Um, they really could make a huge Super Bowl push off of this, and they made a few other small moves here, which we'll talk about shortly. So this actually, I'm a huge fan of. I need to make sure I have my other Miami Dolphins trade ready actually coming up because I had stats on, yep, Mozart's in them there. All right, so the Bills acquire Nyheim Hines from the Colts while they, of course, it's basically a halfback swap. They're swapping backs Nyheim Hines and Zach Moss and a 2023 conditional 5th-round pick. This pick, of course, being tied to Nyheim Hines' playing time. So this was an interesting trade, in my opinion. Hines being 5'9", 196, only averaging approximately 2 yards a carry running. However, he's known to be more of a receiving back, and he actually is averaging 7.5 yards per reception, which is, I don't know a single offensive coordinator in the NFL that's not going to take that. Cheers. However, though, I came across some very interesting things. Supposedly, according to his stats, Nyheim Hines has a high fumble rate. Of course, the Bills were looking to get Christian McCaffrey, but I don't know why. If I was the Bills, I would have definitely matched. I don't know if they were given a chance to. The comp pick that went to San Francisco. I mean, it's NFC to NFC. I don't know, man. I don't get it. But anyway, this gives the Bills actually a really good and deep backfield rotation. So they have Devin Singletary, James Cook, and now Nyheim Hines. So they really have a plethora of halfbacks that have different skill sets. Like I said, though, I should make a note right here on stream. Nyheim Hines has a high fumble rate. Knock on wood, Bills fans. That fumble doesn't come in the playoffs. It would be heartbreaking, and that's kind of what I'm like seeing slightly. I hope not, but a fumble in the playoffs. He's a great kick returner. He's not a good runner in between the tackles, though. Fun little fact about Nyheim Hines being traded to the Bills. His best 3 career running games came against all the Bills, all 3 of them, including a 73-yard in the playoffs in 2020, I believe. So, fun fact, he always played good against the Bills, so hopefully he plays good as a Bill. This pick, Zach Moss, averaging actually 5.4 yards a carry right now. So this is a pretty good pick for the Bills or the Colts to potentially, have a guy that, could be something here in the future. Um, he's not great, but he was buried behind Devin Singletary and James Cook already. So, and I think what they were looking for skill set wise, they wanted more of that receiving threat out of the backfield for Josh Allen. It's really important, especially with these teams playing like a lot of cover 3 and really, leaving that flat open. Quick halfback throws, quick screen game, bringing everyone up to the line of scrimmage can really make a big difference. Great move here by the Bills, rated as a B+, rated as a C for the Colts. I'm going to keep this. Actually, I'm going to lower the Bills grade to a B from a B+. Because, again, this isn't like a starting halfback. This is a rotational piece. The Colts getting a C. I'm going to raise it up a little bit to a C+. Again, I think that's a good move, and again, tying a conditional pick into it based upon playing time when you know he's going to be a rotational player, you're basically and the Colts weren't happy with his fumble rate essentially, which is another reason they made this move. And I'll tell you right now, if he fumbles close to the playoffs and potentially cost them a game before the playoffs, you're not going to see them at all playing him at that point. They'd rather, play one of their other guys, even if it's not their skill set. Moving on, we got the Dolphins 49ers here. So this happened a little earlier. The Dolphins acquiring Jeff Wilson from the 49ers for a 2023 fifth round pick. I think it's hilarious that the Dolphins have reunited Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mozart, who were both actually halfbacks on the 49ers. So this is a great move. Jeff Wilson is a junior. My apologies. I believe so. Or senior. Anyway, Wilson, actually a pretty good runner, good receiving threat, actually. He is averaging 5.1 yards a carry. So this is another reason why they felt so comfortable trading away Chase Edmonds. They took Wilson and Mozart in. Mozart, who actually at one point was on the Baltimore Ravens practice squad, if I'm not mistaken. That's where he got signed to the 49ers from. It was one of those ones where I'm like, man, this guy looks good in preseason. He looks good in camp. I really wish he'd make the roster. And a lot of veterans took his spot, basically. Harbaugh. Frustration. Anyway, with that being said, averaging, like I said, 5.1 yards a carry. They're both actually projected to finish with 900 yards rushing on the season, giving the two halfbacks 1,800 yards. It doesn't happen very often that you get two rushers over 1,000 yards. So, of course, this is rated as a C+ on NFL, but to the Dolphins and 49ers. With the Dolphins making an all-in push here and also in mind with the Mozart trade, I'm going to rate this C+ for the Niners. I'm going to keep that the same. I'm going to rank this as a solid B for the Dolphins. I think this was a really good trade. The Dolphins are currently sitting at 28th in rushing yards and 27th in yards per carry. So they're really looking for someone to take that running game over, to really not have to put Tua in so many bad passing situations. And as we're going to cover in the Mozart trade, of course, Wilson averaging 5.1 yards per carry right now on the season. Again, like we just talked about, actually, with Hines, Wilson's been known to have a little bit of fumbling issues himself, apparently. However, like I said, he's going to be more the rotational piece, I believe, behind Mozart and a change of pace. Jeff Wilson, known being like a one-cut slashing style of runner. So what I believe you're going to see is Mozart running outside zone runs. Because what you're going to want to see is the Dolphins, you're going to want to see, because to his maneuverability, you're going to see, of course, we already see rolling pockets and things like that. So you're going to see that offensive line moving left or right a lot, as they did in San Francisco, giving Mozart the edge and allowing him to get around the corner and get outside. The reason this works so well is Jeff Wilson, with his one-cut style in a zone system. Of course, you have backside and misdirection style runs, and that's where I really believe we're going to see them kind of flipping in and out. They're both expected to finish over 900, under 1,000 yards on the season, meaning I really think we're going to see a 50-50 split here between Wilson and Mozart. So again, B for the Dolphins, C+, getting a 5th round pick when for someone you didn't really need. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I'm running out of steam a little bit here. Man, we still got quite a few trades to go, plus scenarios. We're going to try to keep this train going. I wish I had some more espresso. We're, 50 minutes into the stream. I'm going to try to pick up the pace a little bit. Sorry if I do talk too quickly. So Jets, Jaguars, this one we're not going to give a lot of attention to. The Jets actually might be trying to keep themselves as a potential playoff contender. It's hard to gauge that with the Bills and the Chiefs in the division at this point. I'm going to try to get closer so the lighting works better. So with that being said, the Jets making the move for James Robinson for a 2023 6th round pick. This is rated as a B- to the Jets. Ooh, I forgot the Jaguars grade. Either way, I think this is a B-, basically B range. Either way, of course. Sorry, Breece Hall. Sorry. The season-ending injury to the New York Jets running back really was a crushing blow for that team and their Super Bowl playoff contentions. They're basically giving up nothing for James Robinson, who's a pretty good runner and should match a little bit of what the New York Jets want to do. But the one actually, I have to rate this lower for the Jaguars. I'm sorry, I was just reading my notes. So the one critique we found of this, though, the Jaguars could have potentially gotten a higher compensatory pick for James Robinson leaving in free agency because they're in rebuild mode. I guess he didn't want to stick around. So as I mentioned earlier, the running back market's going to be not that great, and it's going to be a little interesting. I'm definitely going to, Saquon's not hitting free agency. We're going to see some franchise tags and such. So for 6th-round pick, they could have got like a 5th probably for compensatory wise. With that being said, we're going to give this a D by the Jaguars. This was bad. I could be wrong, but we'll see on, I guess, his contract because actually this will be easy to see because we'll see what the Jets get if he doesn't stay. But the Jets might keep him depending on how he does this year. So this one happened a while ago. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this one either. The Cardinals getting wide receiver Robbie Anderson from the Panthers. Panthers getting a 2024 6th and a 2025 7th round pick. The Panthers just wanted to get rid of him. I really wish, as I mentioned earlier, I want the Panthers to do well. I wish the Panthers would have got a little more for him. Robbie Anderson only played... Sorry. Yeah, and the Cardinals lost to the Vikings. He only played 7 snaps, down from the 12 snaps he played before he was targeted 4 times. So he's still not really seeing a lot of playing time. He has a lot of talent, but I've never been a huge fan of Robbie Anderson. I definitely like DJ more. Maryland kid. So I mean, getting anything for Robbie Anderson at that point is kind of a win. This is rated. Is that a D plus by the Cardinals? Yeah, a B for the Panthers because Robbie Anderson right now not looking the part for the Cardinals. Sorry, Cardinal fans. All right, so Browns trading to the Falcons. Browns, of course, acquiring linebacker Deion Jones and a 2024 7th round pick for the Falcons' 2024 6th round pick. This is rated as a C to the Browns and a B to the Falcons. The Falcons, of course, were done and ready to move on from Deion Jones. This is going to free up approximately $20 million in cap space for the Atlanta Falcons next year. So this is going to be big for them heading into free agency. This is, I believe, an attempt by the Browns to try to hold on till Deshaun Watson comes back from suspension. However, I have not paid attention, but I don't know if he's going to see more action because of the video of him caught speeding. Of course, if you're a Browns fan, you're probably hoping Deshaun Watson comes back after the Week 11 suspension. And, of course, with that really talented team around him, makes a deep and potential Super Bowl run. We're going to rate this... I'm going to keep it actually completely as is. A C for the Browns and a B for the Falcons. Falcons, of course, in rebuild mill, that picks nothing. It's basically a comp pick. 7th round pick doesn't matter. This is more about freeing up $20 million in cap space and having a young quarterback that they drafted this year that they might want to build around next year and really try to make. Because as we've seen by the Giants this year and a few other teams, Miami, you got to give the young guy all the weapons. You can't give him no weapons and be like, I want to see the magic. You have to give him the weapons and then, see if he can slowly take pieces away and add to the defense, basically. Next up, we have the trade of the Steelers to the Washington Commanders. Steelers acquiring cornerback William Jackson III and a conditional 2025 7th round pick, while the Commanders are receiving a 2025 conditional 6th round pick. Of course, this is all tied to William Jackson's playtime. This was graded as a B minus to the Commanders and a C plus to the Steelers. Steelers are taking on a 3-year, $42 million contract signed by Jackson recently. This is that's a lot of money for. Yes, it's an obvious upgrade for their secondary right now. However, their playoff chances this year are slowly dwindling, and I don't think this gets them over the hump. That's a lot of money for someone that I don't think is going to be their number one guy. With that said, I'm going to leave the grades. Actually, I'm going to lower the Steelers' grade to a C minus on this. Commanders are going to keep their B minus. This is basically also about freeing up cap space for the Commanders. They're looking around. Of course, the Commanders they're done. Their season's over. So they're already in roster analysis mode, basically seeing, well, who should we keep? Who should we let go? Chase Young, of course, coming back from IR soon. They basically they probably would have loved to have seen if he's going to still give it everything. Because, of course, we saw that, like Bradley Chubb definitely could have got a first-round pick and more for him. So moving on. This is going to be my number one rated under the radar draft or steal of the trade deadline. Sorry, I guess I'm excited for the draft. So Cowboys acquiring defensive tackle Jonathan Hankins and a 2024 7th round pick from the Raiders in exchange for a 2023 6th round pick going to the Raiders. This is rated a C for the Cowboys and a C for the Raiders. The Raiders, again, not what they're supposed to be. I believe they're 2-5 on the season right now. So again, they're kind of in roster analysis mode. What's right, what's wrong. The Cowboys, of course, are kind of like, we going to beat the Eagles and we go into Super Bowl. Every Cowboy fan, this our year. This our year. I'm here to tell you, Cowboy fans, you might have something to actually kind of celebrate. Knock on wood, as long as your team stays healthy. So I'm going to give you why I believe this is the number one underrated draft or trade deal. So coming into this, the Cowboys were 25th in rushing yard defense, 21st in yards per carry. In almost every other statistical category, the Cowboys rank in the top 10. So the one weakness to this team was supposedly their run defense. The Dallas Cowboys have started 4 different D tackles since this season trying to figure out who could stop the run. In the huge win over the Bears the other night by the Cowboys, he played 42% of the snaps. So he came in right away and played a lot of snaps, and they played really well and won that game. Jonathan Hankins, from my previous knowledge and coverage, is a really good run defender. He doesn't have a lot of pass rush or, he's not like that guy that's going to get after the quarterback. But if you want someone to eat a block, shed him, and get to the halfback, that's his skill set. And I think this was a great rotational pickup for a 6th round pick, essentially. I mean, barely, because you traded a 6th this year and picked up a 7th next year. I don't know the contract situation for Hankins, but this could also result in a potential comp pick. If you get a 6th round comp pick and you go to the playoffs, that's not much of a difference in picks. The fact that this was rated as a C for the Cowboys, I think is gross. Sorry, writing a note to try to do a video about this being the steal. Try to write notes. I've got so many video ideas and not enough time in the day. So again, this is going to give a great rotational piece to the Cowboys to hopefully plug that hole in their run defense. And it basically came for nothing. This was a free pickup, basically. I'm going to rate this. I'm rating this as a B plus. I'm going to go full grade above +1. Originally gave the Cowboys a C. I'm going B plus on this. I think this was a no-brainer pickup for the Cowboys. Addresses a huge need. His snap percentages and plays already kind of showing that. And it hopefully will end. And we know this because also after he played 42% of the snaps, one of the Cowboys defensive tackles was actually waived. So this fixed the hole in the middle of the Cowboys defense. And Cowboy fans, like I said, you got something to look forward to this year. So moving on, we're going to move on to and again, this is, again, why I think potentially, I don't know what the Broncos are doing. Broncos acquiring defensive end Jacob Martin from the Jets, as well as a 2024 fifth-round pick. The Jets picking up a 2024 fourth-round pick from the Broncos. So this is basically almost, a little bit of a pick swap going on. Jacob Martin has been kind of like a situational player. The Jets wanted Martin to take a step up and be that pass rusher essentially. However, as the stats show, as his snap percentage goes up, his pass rush efficiency drops. And that's not a good sign. He's just not, he's a rotational guy. So you traded away Bradley Chubb and you filled the hole with Jacob Martin. Now maybe they're hoping Jacob Martin going from, I think the Jets play a 3-4-2, so I just don't understand this move really, unless you're kind of looking at next season instead of this season. Even on the Jets, he only played about 25% of the snaps because he was stuck behind other people. And the Jets just handed him $6 million guaranteed, so the Jets kind of messed up here, and they were like, "Crap, this isn't the guy we paid for." So this is originally ranked as a B- for Broncos, C- for the Jets. I'm actually gonna raise this slightly from a C- to a C for the Jets. Broncos though, I'm dropping from a B- to a straight C. I'm a little head scratching on this. It doesn't line up. I think Martin's in a situation where he's not going to walk after the season, so there's not a comp pick involved here. Maybe they're banking on potentially the scheme change working for him, but this one was a real head scratcher for me. I don't know what Bronco fans or Broncos are doing right now. If you're a Broncos fan, please drop us a comment. Tell us what's going on here. So Falcons Chiefs. This was a good move by the Chiefs. So Falcons, of course, acquiring. I'm sorry, not a good move. This was a just interesting move. This one raises a very important question. So Rashad Fenton was buried behind the Chiefs roster while this is a conditional 7th-round pick, so this is worth nothing. What this move 100% is about, not about compensation. It's about this frees up $1.4 million in cap for the Chiefs. Now, this is for one of two reasons. Now, this might be for Kadarius Toney's, related to the Kadarius Toney trade. The Chiefs might have had to free up some cap space and get under, hence why this is a conditional 7th-round pick. But I have a weird theory here. What if OBJ is thinking about the Chiefs right now? Especially after the Toney trade. What if OBJ is thinking about the Chiefs? Maybe the Chiefs needed a little bit of cap space to sign either a player potentially for injury or potentially go after someone like OBJ. I doubt that they still have enough money, but that's the highlight of this trade, not the picks. I'm sorry, originally rated C- by the Falcons, C- for the Chiefs. If this was done for the Kadarius Toney trade, I'll bump this up to a B- for the Chiefs, C+ for the Falcons. If this is done to sign OBJ, A-. A- for the Chiefs if this was done to sign OBJ. All right, but so moving on, we're going to move to the Bills-Falcons trade. So the Bills are acquiring safety Dean Marlowe from the Falcons and for a 7th-round pick. This was rated a B- for the Bills, B- for the Falcons. I don't really understand B- for the Falcons. Uh, in my opinion, this is an NA, not applicable trade for the Falcons. Acquiring a 7th-round pick is basically nothing. Um, I mean, I guess you're getting something. Actually, I'm sorry. I'm gonna leave the Falcons as a B-, and I let me explain. So the Bills have had having a little bit of secondary issues, and they need just a little bit more depth. Dean Marlowe has played for the Bills. He was originally played for McDermott in Carolina, and then he played for the Bills in the 2018 through 2020 seasons. He's basically been a reserve role player kind of guy. Actually when he did get a little bit of starting time, he played pretty well. I believe he had 2 interceptions for the Bills in 2020, 2019. Also a good special teams player. The reason this stays as a B- for the Falcons is that supposedly in the calling around, no one wanted Dean Marlowe. This was 100% the Falcons or the Bills reached out saying, hey man, we need someone. He knows our system. He knows what we're doing. Would you give him back? Because I believe he went and played. No, it wasn't the Lions. He played for one other team last year, and then of course he was playing for the Falcons this year. So yeah, they were like, "Hey, will you please give him to us?" And to get a 7th-round pick or just any pick in general for a player that was doing absolutely nothing for the Falcons, yeah, you might be able to find something potentially in the future. And with that, we have officially covered NFL trade basically. Um, we've got some big winners and losers coming. Big winner, in my opinion, being like I said, the Dallas Cowboys. I think they got one of the steals of the trade deadline. I believe also one of the big steals is going to be Dean Marlowe as well for the Bills. A little bit under the radar, but I think they're going to be big. Kadarius Toney has a huge upside downside. TJ Hawkinson leaves me a little bit head scratcher. And the trade for Robert Quinn to the Eagles might really be that step over that gets it. Winners coming away from NFL free agency. I'm going to, of course, count my Ravens, the Eagles, Cowboys. Say one more. I'd say Dolphins. Dolphins getting the change in their running back room might really be the dynamic that they're missing. As I talked about, they're really trying to change that offensive game. So 49er fans, it's your time on the stream. Even though there's nobody here, it's your time. So, of course, Christian McCaffrey is going to bring a huge dynamic to the offense. You've got 2 quarterbacks that are pretty good. You've got a great weapons, Deebo Samuel and your other team. Great defense play going on right now. You've got the chance for a Super Bowl run, but it's a little iffy. I remember a team that was doing really well that played in the NFC. I believe it was like 2016, 2017 season. And the thing is, you got your boys, Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo. You know what I'm saying? Is that even Trey Lance? It almost looks like Kaepernick. But you got your 2 quarterbacks. You got your young guy and you got your veteran. Both had a little bit of injury problems, but solid. And definitely 2 different play styles. You've got a game manager in Garoppolo and Trey Lance with a huge arm that can launch it. I'm making the reference to the 2017 Super Bowl 52 Eagles, where Carson Wentz led them on a great run before he was injured. And the veteran came in and took him to the Super Bowl and won. I'm going to put it on stream right now. Here it is. The Niners play well, make the playoffs. There's an injury to Trey Lance. Garoppolo carries them all the way to the Super Bowl. However, Garoppolo does not win the Super Bowl. Sorry, Niner fans. You get there, but you're not going to win the big ticket. Sorry. But with that being said, how hilarious would it be if that came true and I had it here on the stream? So let's move to the Viking. Vikings is less based on Viking fans. This is your time. So I had to do some research based on what Mike was telling me. You know, are the Minnesota Vikings for real? Are they that team? We talked about earlier in the TJ Hawkinson trade how the offense isn't really accentuated for the tight end, but they might change that. They might redo a little revamping. So I did a little digging into the Vikings. Are they for real? And we came across a couple interesting stats along the way. And I'm going to go ahead and put those on screen and we'll talk about them so you can read them too. Got a lot there, so might be a little hard. So Football Power Index has ranked them in 2 out of their 7 games as being underdogs. So they have not been the underdogs many games. However, as we know, they're 6-1. So they're winning as they're expected to. They're doing what they're expected to do. That's a good sign. In their final 10 games, they're favored in 6 out of those 10. So essentially following FPI trends based upon current play and what's predicted, the Minnesota Vikings should finish 12-5, definitely making the playoffs, potentially winning the division. So with that being said, we got some other interesting stats. The Minnesota Vikings so far in 7 games have won 5 of those games by 1 position. That's only happened 4 or 5 times in the past 20 years. So they're playing tight games, but they're clutching it. Their strength of schedule we'll go into here in just a minute. But of the 3 teams that made this, or that had done this before, essentially they made it to the Super Bowl. And that's the 2015 Broncos, the 2006 Colts, and the 2003 Panthers. So, again, if we're looking at a pure stat line here for the Minnesota Vikings, history would show they've got a good chance of making it to the Super Bowl. However, we have to examine everything. So of the 25 teams to start 6-1 since 2002, 20 have made the playoffs. Of the 5 teams that missed it since 2002, one of them was the Minnesota Vikings in 2003, where they started 6-1, lost the next 4, then went 2-5, but they almost made the playoffs. I believe, were playing the Arizona Cardinals week 16, 17, and win it and you're in basically. However, they lost, so they still almost made it. Kirk Cousins is currently ranked 16th in QBR in the NFL, so he's playing average middle of the pack. So for my Minnesota Vikings fans, you have good precedents historically and with power indexes of making a Super Bowl run. With the Packers not making a move, I definitely think you've got an easy path to the division this year, and you've got it. I think you've got the edge over the Niners. The Eagles are going to be the only test. As long as you can avoid the Eagles till the NFC Championship game, I think the Vikings have it. Vikings versus Eagles, I'm sorry, I don't think, barring health and if they played right now, I'm sorry, Viking fans, I don't think you're getting past the Eagles. But if the Eagles are knocked out, I think we got a Viking Super Bowl run, honestly. Now let me cut my thing here and go back to my backgrounds. So we wanted to look at strength of schedule. So the 2022 remaining strength of schedule, actually, according to my website I have here, Washington Commanders actually have the hardest strength of schedule remaining, with their opposing record being 43-25-1, with a win percentage of 6.63. So Commander fans, If you're sticking around, you are going to have a rough rest of the season. Uh, the Green Bay Packers ranking 7th on this list, so sorry, Grossi. Again, you're going to have the NFC North has just got a really rough schedule right here. The Chicago Bears are right above the Packers. Cowboys are ranked number 8. Subsequently, my Baltimore Ravens, currently strength of schedule 32nd. They have the easiest remaining strength of schedule at opponents being 25-47 and a win percentage of .34. But so why we got here in the first place, though, we were wanting to look at the Minnesota Vikings. So Minnesota Vikings, in the essence of always kind of staying around the middle, have the current 11th hardest remaining strength of schedule at a 41-36-1 with a .532, so 50% opposing winning rate. So you've got, again, a good chance to get to the Super Bowl based on strength of schedule, and because, like I said, you've got 2 division opponents that have a significantly harder schedule, just I'm guessing because the little extra games they throw in here and there. Also, it's probably ranked on away, and it's like I said, it's remaining games. So with that being said, we wanted to take a look as well as the Vikings' total offense and defense and kind of like the leaders here. So the main thing that's kind of killing me about the Vikings is we didn't really see a defensive trade. They're kind of banking on TJ Hawkinson upping their points per game for the rest of the season. Right now, the Minnesota Vikings are sitting towards the bottom in the NFL in total yards allowed per game, sitting at 383 yards per game. Only 4 teams ranking below them at this point. Not a good look if we're looking at points per game. Let me get my stats here. The my Vikings are ranking middle of the pack at 20.6. So you'd like to see that points per game lowered by at least 1 touchdown, hopefully sitting around, maybe 13 to 15 points per game, which would put them, if they were 13, they'd be best in the NFL, so let's revise that. 15 would put them second. I mean, if they could even lower it to a 17 average, that would put them in the top 5. So, I mean, not bad points per game. They're allowing a lot of yards, so that's good that they're seeing a red zone defense. Moving to offense for the Minnesota Vikings, of course, they're again kind of middle of the pack here. Yeah, like dead middle in yards per game at 345.7. But of course, we all know points wins games. And the Minnesota Vikings are currently sitting a little above. They're, what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10th in the NFL at 24.7 points per game. And again, they're hoping to bump that number up. So if they're sitting at 24.7, if they could bump that up even 1 point per game average, that would place them within the top 8 in the NFL, basically. That would place them right under my Baltimore Ravens, who sit at 26 points per game in the NFL. So again, Viking fans, you've got a real shot. I really don't know if you beat the Eagles, who of course ranked number 3 in points offense, and of course are ranked in the top 5 in defense as well. You've got to get through the 49ers, who are ranking and number 1 in the NFL in defense, yards per game allowed. It's going to be really tough. The Broncos are hoping on that defense, but of course with Bradley Chubb moving on and just in general, the defense, I'm just not sold, man. I'm not sold on the Broncos. But with that being said, we've kind of covered everything that we wanted to for this video. We're sitting at a minute, hour and 21, so definitely want to get this done before an hour 30. For anyone that comes in, drops in, watches to the end of this video, thank you again for coming in to watch. Grossi, please do a video with me. Destroying, if you ever see my videos, come hit me up in Florida. I'm out of shape, but I'd love to be in something. With that being said, this is D-rave. I'm signing off, and